Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News, focusing on the tragic loss of Air India Flight 171. I'm Jeffrey Thomas, and I'm delighted to say, joined by my co-host Richard Godfrey in Frankfurt. Good morning to you, Richard.
And good afternoon to you, Jeffrey.
So, viewers, this is a very special edition of our coverage of Air India 171, because today we are publishing our preliminary report into the crash of Air India Flight 171 on the 12th of June 2025. Now, the episode is numbered 185 and is dated 13th of August 2025. And this is because a viewer suggested we state the episode number and the date at the start of each for the ease of tracking. So that's what we're going to do from now on. This episode is titled A Plausible Hypothesis. You will find a technical note with the same title linked in the description below, and we urge you to have a look at it. It's 17 pages long, and it's an outstanding piece of work. So, Richard, what are the key findings?
Yes, there are three separate issues that impact on the Air India incident and crash. There was a longer than usual takeoff roll. The second was an electrical fault that caused RAT deployment 2 seconds after takeoff. And the third is a dual engine shutdown between 4 and 5 seconds after takeoff. The flight lasted only 30.715 seconds, and there was just too little time to relight the engines and achieve sufficient thrust to save the aircraft.
Richard, are these three issues in any way related, or are they entirely separate?
That's a very good question. And the longer than usual takeoff roll was due to what is called roll resistance on the runway. And that issue stopped the moment the aircraft became airborne. So we conclude that this was most likely brake-related roll resistance, and that is not related to the next issue, which was the RAT electrical event. The RAT deployment was due to an electrical fault, and that occurred 2 seconds after takeoff and 1 second before the maximum recorded airspeed of 180 knots IAS. The fuel switches were both moved to cutoff after the electrical fault and after the maximum airspeed was recorded. RAT deployment does not cause an automatic engine shutdown, but a major electrical fault can cause both a RAT deployment and an engine shutdown. If engine shutdown was not caused by an electrical fault, but caused by the fuel switches being moved to cutoff, then the maximum recorded airspeed would have been higher than the 180 knots at around 187 knots, and it would have occurred 2 seconds later. Moving the fuel switches to cutoff in the cockpit was a deliberate action, plausibly driven by misinterpretation under time stress.
So you're saying the dual engine shutdown was not caused by the fuel switches being moved to cutoff, but caused by an electrical fault 2 or 3 seconds earlier?
Yes, we have included a detailed timeline of the exact sequence of events in the technical note, which is linked below. And there are two key points. Number one, electrical faults have been known to cause engine shutdown, both on the Boeing 787 and on other aircraft, and also including dual engine shutdown. And the second point, what confirms the RAT deployment at 080841 UTC is the hard cutoff of the transponder, which is a non-essential electrical item, and that cut off at 08:08:50.871 UTC, which is 9.871 seconds after RAT deployment. And this is exactly when the RAT starts to supply stable electrical supply, around 10 seconds after deployment. And the power distribution system can then switch from the main battery as the emergency backup to the RAT as the emergency essential electrical supply.
So then, Richard, why did the electrical fault occur or reoccur?
We include a detailed analysis in the report of the engine system, the electrical system, and the fuel system, and how they are integrated. We also discuss the level of redundancy and backup, and where the systems are located in the aircraft. We go through all the possible electrical issues, both cited in airworthiness directives during the 13.5-year history of the Boeing 787, issues on other aircraft types from Airbus, Boeing, and Embraer, which may be relevant, as well as other analysts' report on the electrical issues. We were able to eliminate most of the possibilities and came to the conclusion the most likely electrical fault was water ingress into the EE bay, and the most likely location was the aft EE bay. Water ingress remains an open question until maintenance logs are made public. The FAA AD 2025-0618, as well as the reference predecessor documents, mandates inspection of moisture protection systems. So we need to know exactly what was done and when.
So, Richard, what other electrical faults did you consider in this report?
We go through the electrical system in detail. The aircraft experienced an electrical failure 2 seconds after takeoff, and that caused the RAT to deploy. Various electrical systems failed on the previous flight, and these were at least in part cleared. The stabilizer trim transducer failed. The in-flight entertainment system failed. The cabin emergency lighting was flickering. The preliminary report only mentions the stabilizer trim transducer issue being cleared before the next flight, and it reports the troubleshooting was carried out and the flight was released at 6:40 UTC. There is no mention in the preliminary report of maintenance work on the in-flight entertainment system, cabin electrical system, or the cabin air conditioning system issues, which were reported by several passengers who were on the previous flight. And power panel contactor logic transients, so-called chatter, in the primary distribution path can momentarily de-energize multiple downstream buses. The remote power distribution units and the electrical load management system, which sheds and restores loads dynamically, can also have a contributing factor. A RPDU control fault or ELMS EPMS mistiming can induce brief system-wide power quality dips before auto reconfiguration affects then avionics, pumps, control electronics on both sides of the aircraft, the left and the right engine systems. And the GCU counter overflow after 248 days can be eliminated because the aircraft was completely powered down at the last maintenance, which was 140 days prior to the crash. So what we've done is gone through each possibility and eliminating it one by one.
What about other possible scenarios?
Well, people have mentioned quite a few. FADEC glitch, a dual software failure across both FADECs and in both channels is statistically negligible. Lithium battery fire has been mentioned. No evidence of a thermal runaway, however. No lithium battery fires recorded since 2014. And as we know, the lithium battery system was completely redesigned. Others have pointed out a lithium battery failure, but on the aircraft, there's a main battery, an APU battery, and two FADEC batteries, and they're all directly integrated into the DC distribution logic with full redundancy. And each has its own charger and controller and internal diodes and protective electronics. There is no single diode failure which would cause a lithium battery failure. All the other batteries, lithium batteries, are local and self-contained in various systems with no role in the bus interconnection. And they all have their own internal protection, including their own miniature diodes or MOSFET-based isolation. There was also a tail fire reported, but this was post-crash and contained, in our view, not causal and not lithium battery related. So we tried to exclude all the possible scenarios.
What about the fuel switches and the fuel control module, though?
Yeah, the fuel control module, where the run cutoff switches are connected to the SPA valve start switch relay. And there's two, one on the left engine, one on the right. And they're also connected to the remote data concentrator, RDC, and there's one for the left engine, one for the right. The two fuel switches are powered by separate electrical buses, and each switch has two separate signal paths, and the possibility that all four signal paths failed simultaneously is negligible. However, what we were looking for was a single point intermittent common mode electrical failure upstream of the fuel switches, and that cannot be ruled out. An intermittent common mode fault, for example, in the fuel control switch assembly or in the shared wiring upstream of the relays or the RDCs, that could command both fuel valves to close simultaneously, and that is a feasible and plausible scenario. A catastrophic sequence of system failure can easily take several seconds to unfold in the cadence of individual events unfolding in sequence in a highly redundant system architecture. The report, the preliminary report, explicitly states there were no recorded defect history on the airplane switches, quotes the part number and references the 2018 FAA SAIB NM 1833, points out that it's advisory and not mandatory, so they didn't do it. But that still supports the claim that the installed switches were not known to be defective and their recorded movements were real. It does not by itself, however, prove that there couldn't have been an upstream electrical or logical issue.
Mm. So, Richard, what other possible causes did you consider in this 17-page report?
Well, we went through a very large root cause analysis. We considered the engines, the fuel system, the electrical system, the avionics system, and those systems separately and as an integrated aircraft system. And there are two key points. Number one, the engines were both shut down, but both engines were successfully relit. And this implies that the FADECs in both engines did not detect engine damage that would prevent a relight sequence. And the second point is the fuel system can cause an engine shutdown, but again, both engines were successfully relit. So any issue with the fuel system must therefore have been intermittent and was cleared quickly to allow relight. And we go through the major components of the fuel system for the GEnx-1B engine, the fuel valves, the pumps, the filters. They all had to be functioning for a successful relight. And neither the fuel switches were permanently cut off, nor were the fire handles operated, as evidenced by a successful relight of both engines.
So, Richard, what is your conclusion?
The conclusion is the most likely cause of the accident involving Air India Flight 171 was triggered by water ingress into the electronic equipment EE bay during rotation. And that led to a simultaneous electrical disruption of engine electrical power buses or systems, coupled with an intended or unintended fuel switch movement. The water ingress and electrical fault resulted in the near instantaneous shutdown of both engines at low airspeed and low altitude. And due to the extremely limited energy margin, there was insufficient time for the FADEC-controlled engine relight sequence to restore thrust or prevent a loss of control and terrain impact. If this hypothesis is proven, then the event was preventable, and it points instead to a root cause of the failure of maintenance oversight and non-compliance with FAA AD 2025-09-12, which specifically addresses water ingress into the EE bay and the need for improved cabin water sealing.
So then pilot error can be ruled out.
This accident was not the result of pilot error per se, but there may have been an intended pilot fuel switch movement to force the engine relight sequence, or an unintended pilot fuel switch movement due to the startle effect or cockpit stress and work overload. Even if the fuel switches had been left in run, there was still insufficient time, airspeed, and altitude to successfully relight both engines and save the aircraft. The pilot action to move the fuel switches to cutoff to force the FADEC relight sequence may or may not have been necessary, but would likely not have changed the outcome. The engine relight sequence takes at least 20 seconds, and it can take much longer. And the flight only lasted 30.715 seconds. It's essentially a tragic situation where time ran out quickly for Air India Flight 171.
Yes, it sounds like a freak accident
Yeah.
brought about by possible maintenance errors by Air India, according to this hypothesis that you've
Yeah.
put together.
That's correct. And there were three issues going on
Yeah,
at the same time, or almost at the same time. So you can imagine the ICAS messages that would have been displayed in the cockpit and the overwhelming nature of these three issues taking place. And it's a hypothesis, it's plausible, but we need the maintenance logs to be sure that this hypothesis is correct.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure what we're going to do, viewers, is the transcript of this discussion will be on a website with a direct link to the full 17-page report, which I urge you to look at because it is really an outstanding piece of work with a lot of detail and a lot of comprehensive explanations and diagrams. So it's absolutely worth having a good look at. And we would absolutely welcome your feedback, good or bad, and what you think. And you may come up with something that we possibly hadn't thought of. I can't imagine what that might be because Richard has done an amazing job of analysis of this particular tragic accident.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we don't claim to be 100% foolproof, and we welcome the questions and the comments, and we welcome both those who agree with us and those who disagree with us. And in fact, from those who disagree with us, we can learn something new, and that's great.
So we will be back tomorrow with your questions, answers to your questions and comments. It will be posted a little bit later tomorrow for various circumstances, but it will be posted tomorrow. So Richard, thank you indeed for this outstanding piece of work, a really amazing bit of work. Nothing else I could say other than amazing. And viewers, please subscribe to us, please like us, please keep those wonderful supportive comments coming and keep those fabulous questions coming. We really do appreciate them very much. And as we've said before, we can't possibly respond to all of them, but I can assure you we do read virtually all of them, and they're really they're very, very good indeed. So Richard, that's all from us today. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
And thank you again, viewers, for your company. And please do tune in tomorrow. We look forward to discussing this report in full with you tomorrow. Thank you.